First of all, we're going to start with Boris Johnson. He survived last night's vote of confidence, a vote which so many people felt was, well, inevitable after that rather frosty reception at Friday's service of Thanksgiving for the Queen. And it's believed that even by Sunday's pageant, there he is, not looking too happy. He knew the challenge to his leadership was imminent. Well, with me now, two people who broke that Partygate story, ITV News UK editor Paul Brand and Daily Mirror editor Alison Phillips. Well, apart from absolutely losing altogether, this is not a good result. You can't put a spin on it, really. They've tried today, but no.
Yeah, I mean, look, technically he won, right?
Yeah,
but imagine you're going to work today and you're passing the security guard, you're saying hello to the receptionist, you're sitting down to the person who's sitting next to you at work, you're going to the water cooler, bump into a member of staff who all want you to resign from your job. In fact, you look around the office and 41% of people around you want you to resign. That's the personal position that Boris Johnson's in today. Yeah. And yet he's got to try and move on now. He's got to try and pull those 148 MPs with him when they're pulling in the opposite direction. Do
you think that's possible, Alison? Do you think he can? Because, I mean, in the past, we've seen Mrs Thatcher resigned. Theresa May, for goodness sake, who actually got a better result than Boris Johnson, and she went.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly difficult for him now because I think, contrary to perhaps some of the things that were being said yesterday, this wasn't a really organised plot. This wasn't lots of people sitting around that already had a plan. It was right, this is who we're going to put up, this could be the next leader, we're all going to do this at this time. Yeah. It was people that had just sort of MPs that particularly, I think, had spent a lot of time in their constituencies over the Jubilee weekend and were just hearing it again and again and again, this guy's not fit for office. Yeah. So they put their letters in, all a bit kind of randomly and sporadically. And so the tricky thing for him is he's got people from the right wing of the party opposing him, he's got people from the left wing opposing him, he's got people that came in only 2019 opposing him, he's got people that have been there for decades opposing him. And so now the tricky bit is, well, he could try and please these people, but by doing that, he's going to upset those people over there. He could try and please those people, but he's going to upset those people over there. He's promised lots of people promotions because they voted for him yesterday. Yeah. But that means he's going to have to upset a lot of other people, shifting them out. So it's a minefield for him.
The thing is, though, and Paul, you know because you're there, it's pretty slim pickings for somebody to take over. That's the trouble. There isn't really a clear candidate to take over from him if he goes.
No, and that's the one thing that he's got in his favour right now, is there's not a challenger, there's not someone who's really come out of the blocks and said, I want to be Prime Minister, a bit like Boris Johnson did when, of course, we had Theresa May facing the same problem as he now faces. So he's lucky in that respect. But I wouldn't rule out some of those candidates starting to emerge, and often, it just takes a bit of momentum for some of that to start building. And yesterday we had Jeremy Hunt, for example, saying quite publicly that he would vote against Boris Johnson. Many of us took that as a sign that Jeremy Hunt does intend to run against him at some stage.
I think so, for sure.
It's early days, but it doesn't mean that a challenger won't emerge in the coming weeks.
Very much so. There's some interesting, just, the typical British sense of humour. There was a lot read into the fact that Theresa May turned up to vote in a ball gown.
That was the best thing that happened yesterday, in my opinion.
She wasn't dancing her way to vote as well,
She was definitely having a ball, anyway, whatever
We think it'll be something like that gown that she was wearing. But you can forgive her for feeling slightly kind of smug.
Well, Boris Johnson destroyed her, really. And totally. And so this is probably payback time.
I know. And then we had the fact, the beautiful, beautiful thing over the Jubilee, which was obviously Paddington Bear, which everybody will remember. And then somebody has put up on, as they always do, on social media. It's got, there we are. And would you like some tea, ma'am, says Paddington. And the Queen says, no, I'd like you to form a government.
Wouldn't that be lovely? A lovely Paddington Bear with everyone's best interests at heart.
No,
and honest. He'd never tell fibs, would he, Paddington?
No, he would not. No. He can't help himself from telling the truth, which is good. What are we going to see, Paul, though? What's going on, backstairs? What's going on? Is there lots of jostling for permission? Alison was saying he's obviously promised the world to a lot of people. Vote for me and you can have this lovely, juicy job. What do you think's going on right now?
I think there will be a reshuffle, which is pretty harsh on some of the people who backed him yesterday, actually. A lot of the Cabinet went out publicly and backed Boris Johnson, put their own reputations on the line. Now they might be sacked in a reshuffle. But he's got to try and bring through some of those people that he probably promised jobs to yesterday, quite frankly, in private conversations. And he's got to try and bring forward some of those critics into his cabinet or into ministerial roles to try and shore up his position, really. But it's only a temporary fix because we've got lots more challenges coming down the line for Boris Johnson, a couple of by-elections later this month.
True, yes, of course.
And so I think a lot of the rebels are sort of sitting back and saying, well, this is not going to be the end of it, and actually let's let events play out a bit and just damage Boris Johnson further before we make another move against it.
And meanwhile, we've got this cost of living crisis. There's obviously with the continuing appalling situation in Ukraine, there's lots of things that we need to be sorted out.
We really do. And I think the country wants sort of emphasis on the cost of living crisis. And it's all very well for Boris Johnson to keep blaming the media for running these stories. The only reason we're running these stories is because all this bad stuff has happened, and it is our job to shine a light when lies are told or people don't do their jobs properly. We'd all love for it to be done if we could then go back to really focusing on the issues that do matter.
No, this is the
thing.
But
then honesty matters. Really, we can never get away from that.
It was interesting, though. This has been bubbling away for a long time, hasn't it? It really has, Paul. I mean, but it didn't come out because the weekend, I think everybody just wanted the Jubilee to be out of the way. And when I say out of the way, I mean, for it all to go well before this happened.
And it was recess,
But he must have known that this was on the cards, surely. It wouldn't have taken him by surprise, I wouldn't have thought.
No, I mean, nobody knows until Sir Graham Brady, who's the chair of this 1922 committee, who's in charge of this process, comes forward and actually says. But Boris Johnson will have had an idea. He's got a whole team of people around him whose sole task is to monitor backbenchers and to work out which way things are heading. Although, actually, there's been a lot of discussion about the fact that maybe they didn't do a great job because the vote yesterday was far more damaging for Boris Johnson than actually anyone had predicted, and maybe they didn't get out there soon enough, his team, and start trying to bend the ears of backbenchers and saying, look, calm down, don't vote against the Prime Minister, because in the end it ended up being quite a humiliating vote. Even though he won, it was really seen as a loss.
And I think they did underestimate it, how bad it was going to be. And maybe that is that kind of arrogance, that sort of sense that surely there aren't that many people that think this, because they keep telling us, oh, it doesn't matter, this isn't what people are interested in. Well, clearly, a lot of people are interested in it.
And it's the feedback that they're getting from constituents. We come back to this point about, is it all a sort of a media construction, this Partygate scandal? Well, I think what MPs discovered was, no, it wasn't when they went back to their constituencies. And like you say, it was a Jubilee weekend, but that was a perfect opportunity for them to have face-to-face time with lots of constituents at Jubilee events. And then they came back to Parliament and said, oh, actually, this is a real issue.
No, and it very much is. It very much is. Thank you both. Always a joy to talk to you. We'll see what happens over the next weeks. Well, days, probably. I mean, you can...
Hours.
Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen next? Thank you very much indeed. Don't forget, you can watch full episodes of Lorraine on the ITV Hub and all the best clips, compilations and playlists right here on our channel. Just subscribe now and you'll never miss an upload. Click here to watch another video similar to this one, or click here to head to our channel's homepage to explore all of our exciting videos.